The masterclass on generative AI for digital transformation by Eshwar Belani has been intriguing and insightful. How feasible or easy difficult is for a company or government to train or fine-tune ChatGPT to their data? Can we have a private implementation based on the generative AI platforms, since it needs to learn by our data and our documents? We cannot expect to expose all our corporate info and data to access by everyone.
So yeah, with GPT from OpenAI, version 3.5, you can absolutely fine-tune with your own data. The world of fine-tuning is slightly complicated. There is a notion of fine-tuning where you're training the model to identify new patterns, and that's the type of fine-tuning that GPT 3.5 supports today. If you want to fundamentally incorporate new knowledge into the model, you'll have to work with different models. With GPT-4, they are expected to allow us to fine-tune GPT-4 as well, but they haven't released a date for that yet. Now, using again GPT 3.5 with Microsoft Azure, you can use the Azure OpenAI service to create a tenant, and then you can, you'd have all the data protections that that you'd need to work with your own data and fine-tune these models. Now, I responded with GPT because the question had GPT, but there are a whole host of open source models. There are models from other vendors as well that you can take, and you can fine-tune to incorporate new knowledge, or just pattern match and help them figure out new tasks. And there are many vendors that allow you to do that, and you have a lot of flexibility with the open source world too. And with these others, you can certainly run them in the context of your own tenant, your own environment, so you will have all the data privacy and protections that you need.
For young civil servants in India, what is a suggested way for learning the policy safeguards that are needed today and in future for governing these emerging technologies? What are the AI tools available on our mobile free of cost? What are AI tools available at present which a government servant India can use?
So the policy safeguards, that is a very active area for discussion. We are still trying to figure out what are the right guardrails for these models. You're probably familiar that these models, they are still in their very, very early days of evolution in the grand scheme, and so they tend to have some issues, and these issues are along the lines of they tend to sometimes make up an answer, and they do so reasonably confidently. So you really don't know if this is factual or not. So those are called hallucinations. There may be biases or other discriminatory information in the training data sets, which could get amplified by these models. So that's another class of problems. There are a few other risks which I will call out later in the presentation, but to read up and come up to speed with all the different risks, there's no one source. So you'll have to keep up with the news in this area, and then just recently, this whole area around AI safety has been getting a lot of attention. Just I think today or yesterday, there were a lot of senior, the who's who of the folks in AI and computer science signed another petition warning of the very severe and substantial risks from these generative AI models, going down to like them being existential for humanity and mankind. So there's a spectrum of risks, a lot of them, and there's a lot of very active debate going on in how we put guardrails around these models, what regulatory framework should we put around these models, what kind of safety tests these models need to pass before we expose them to the public. No answers. There are lots of questions here and lots of active debate, and we're trying to balance, not to be very heavy-handed on a regulatory side, but at the same time, we want to, take care of all these risks as well. The second part of the question was, what are the free tools? In terms of free, right now, there's the ChatGPT 3.5, that's free. There's the Bing equivalent. There's Bing Chat, that's free. There's Bard, which is from Google, that's free. And then there could be others, but these are three important ones. And then there are some paid services, like if you needed access to GPT-4 more regularly, you'd probably have to pay OpenAI a fee. And then there are a whole host of other, private company-based models and services which aren't free. But you can start with those first three ones, and they should, take you pretty far.
How prone are these models for manipulation by Google/OpenAI ostensibly in the name of mitigating bias? Do you think these foundation models will be controlled by few large companies and most of the other companies' users will use the API access in their products? Or will most of the companies develop their own foundation models to integrate with the products?
Yeah, good question. So I'll use OpenAI as an example. They do publish, there's a technical report for GPT-4, so you can go read it, which talks about all the work that they've done to ensure a certain level of safety and minimize bias. Now, there is still some bias there. It still hallucinates. So you have to think of these as, early versions of the technology, which have some of these limitations. I think part of the question alluded to some other agenda that company like OpenAI or Google may have, right, around these models. So I think what happens is, as folks come to market with an offering, these are not open source offerings. So, you will have to either trust what those companies are telling you. And these companies, at least for now, what we expect is they are working in good faith. So they are genuinely trying to release the best possible product at that whatever point in time with the best possible intentions. So that's at least the understanding. Like with every market, what you'll find is people will start using these models, and then each one of these companies will build a reputation and will get some associated credibility, based on how these models perform, right? So I expect that to happen over the next several months, and we will start seeing where these models are strong on a per company basis, where they may have weaknesses, where they may be inherent biases or hallucinations, things of that nature. I think will become a little bit more apparent. But right now, all these models, they all have these issues. Some have them more versus less. The second part of the question was who's going to own and control these models going forward. So there's a pretty big open source movement. I think it is a strategic imperative for India to build like a national level large language model focused on local languages, local concepts, local information. It should be thought of at the lines of a national infrastructure budget. So India is spending so much on roads and ports and so on and so forth. This should be thought of as national infrastructure because it's going to impact all walks of life. Now, having said that, there are a whole host of open source models, and what I expect is different companies will use different models based on the use case. It's all going to be driven based off of a use case. And if it's a very focused use case, you may not need the full power and glory of one of these extra XL models, super large models. You may be able to get away with a much smaller domain-focused model to address a simplified use case, because then that also has implications on the cost of running these models. And then with a smaller model, you might even be able to deploy it within an enterprise or within a government division or things of that nature. So all the data doesn't have to leave that entity. So I expect there to be lots of different models used, all driven based on the use case. Now, I do want to call out one important part, which relates to the question, which is as it relates to the very large models, there is some discussion that if you don't have one of these very large models by say the end of this year or by sometime next year, it will be very hard for you to be competitive as it relates to building these large models, because what's happening is we are on this exponential curve, right? Everything is increasing at an astounding pace, and so things are moving 2x, 5x, 10x year over year. And so what's happening right now is GPT-3 was used to train GPT-4, and as GPT-4 gets better, it's going to be used to train GPT-5. And so that path of innovation is accelerating in a very furious pace. And if we are to there's some speculation out there that the training cost of these models, like I alluded to earlier, is going into the hundreds of millions of dollars for the very large models. So at that size and scale, it's only going to be a few entities that are going to be able to invest those sums of money. And if you don't do that quickly enough, it'll be very hard for you to ever catch up. That's the expectation. Starting around sometime later next year, many of these will hit escape velocity, and then the vendors who are in that market will pretty much be the dominant players.
How good are summaries generated by this technology on some specific domain? Example, biomedical domain. We have PubMed-trained transformer models already. Does this give better results than that in generating abstracts? For example, is there a benchmark on technical reports summary?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know of a benchmark for summarization. It'll be worthwhile to look that up. But I can tell you, like a BARD or a GPT-4, if you give it some source, document, it can do a pretty high quality job of generating a summary. And if you wanted to add something or remove something from the summary, you can go back and forth and customize that. But I'm unaware of any benchmark that compares the summarization capabilities.
Are there unique data signatures or data topographies to identify if the output is AI generated? Are there going to be in the near future identifiers to suggest AI versus original creations?
No, I don't think so. I think for some of the very vanilla style, GPT or BARD responses, you can probably have a model that detects them. In fact, there's a company called Quillbot that detects if students are submitting, responses to assignments that was actually generated by GPT-4 or by BARD or something along those lines. But there are so many interesting or so many different ways in which you can give your prompt that the output becomes pretty much undetectable, at least, from my understanding. So this is going to be a cat and mouse thing, and I don't think you'll have a reliable way to say if a certain output came from a large language model or a foundation model or was generated by a human. You probably won't be able to do that reliably.
How is generative AI changing creative work? How can organizations leverage generative AI to reinvent the customer experience?
Yeah, so good question. So it is, we didn't cover some aspects of I have many demos on the creative side too that we didn't cover, but it's completely turning that world upside down. We took pride as being humans and coming up with creative new novel ideas, but now it's with something like a BARD or a GPT-4, particularly with GPT-4, it is coming up with very fascinating new creative pieces of work by itself. You also see that in something like a Firefly with images. We have tools that generate videos, prompt to video. There's prompt to sound and music, prompt to image, and then you can prompt to like any kind of text-based article that you want to put together. So the definition of how creative work changes, it's going to be more imagination centric in what goes into your prompt, and then it's going to be more editorial in terms of how you refine and revise the output that you get from one of these models. So I think that's where the people with strong editorial skills and with a strong sense of what will resonate with their target audience will come out ahead, and you don't have to build or create all of these things from scratch. Now, in terms of how companies use this for the customer journey, there are so many different ways. So for starters, personalized messaging, personalized recommendations for different types of products, personalized service and support. If you look at every aspect of the customer end-to-end journey and life cycle, generative AI probably has a role to play in improving each and every one of those touch points and stages.
Do you see another AI winter coming up? The latest activity is resources intensive, and companies will face a cost-benefit chasm soon.
Not in the foreseeable future. No, I think at least from everything I'm seeing and hearing here in the Valley, we have the current paradigm that we are in has a fair bit of room to grow, and we can continue to innovate and drive the intelligence bar higher. So at least for the foreseeable future, I don't see a winter.
Can AI sabotage hinder other AI platforms? Like, can ChatGPT assess and deduce bad AI to be completion and react to it? Is it capable to get out of hand and act independently without us humans actually knowing?
Yeah, so on the first one, Bard and ChatGPT know of each other, so you can ask Bard about ChatGPT. It'll tell you what it thinks. So it's not like these things don't know each other.
And Alexa,
yeah, something along those lines. And the second part of your question is one of those existential concerns that some of the smartest people in the world of computer science and AI have signed a petition raising alarm bells that there is a distinct possibility that these things could escape human control and drive their own agenda. It is a distinct possibility.
How can generative AI be disruptive in higher education industry?
There was a slide on education, and I think that gives you the high level. In the interest of time, that covers most of the high level messages. I think the biggest one is instead of everyone being in a classroom and going at the same pace and hearing the same material and content as everyone else, someone who's quick can go much quicker. Someone who needs more time to grasp the concepts can be given more step-by-step personalized guidance and maybe a different adaptive path to learning. So we can really customize this journey for different students and tap upon different motivations that different students have and how they learn to make it an effective process for all, versus the one-size-fits-all kind of approach we've had so far. The faculty definitely try their best to help each student, but it's at the end of the day there's too many students and there's only so much that can be done.
Hope you enjoyed this masterclass and thank you for watching. Don't forget to tune into our next one.